ASU wants to run it back. TCU is looking to make a comeback after a down-ish year. How are they going to win the Big 12? That's all coming up on today's crossover edition of Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Horned Frogs.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Horned Frogs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm the Locked On Sun Devils host, Richie Bradshaw, your guide for all things Arizona State Sun Devils, from the gridiron to the hardwood and everything in between. Joining Stephen Simcox from the Locked On Horned Frogs podcast for everything you need to know from the gridiron to the hardwood and everything in between. ASU is looking to defend their Big 12 title. TCU won the title not that long ago. And last I checked, TCU has been a pretty good team in the Big 12 for a long time. So, yeah, both of them are going to be in this race to win the Big 12. We're going to talk about how ASU and TCU can win the conference. If not us, then who? What's the toughest game on the schedule look like? And how are we feeling about TCU heading to Tempe later this year? Before we get started, thanks to each and every single one of you for joining Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Horned Frogs to make us your first and second listens of the day. Shout out to the everydayers who are here every day. Steven, let's talk some Horned Frogs, because I am bullish on TCU this year. I really like what they got going on. It obviously starts with Josh Hoover, but I know that there's a lot that TCU has to offer, and they certainly have the coaching continuity that you typically need to be able to make a pretty good run in any conference, let alone a wide open Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like this is kind of a year they've been building towards now for a few seasons after that run to the college football playoff. And they really closed the season strong last year. I think that's the biggest reason for optimism. You mentioned Josh Hoover. He was really good, cut back on interceptions in the second half of the season and threw for almost 4,000 yards. And really, Richie did that without much of a run game at all, which is something that they hope they can improve this year. So if I think about how are they going to win the league, it really comes down to, can you play more complementary football? Can you have a more balanced offense? I mean, you can still throw it around and score, but when you have to run the ball, can you do it? And then defensively, Andy Avalos, who came over from being a head coach at Boise State a few off seasons ago, it's year 2 for him. They've got a lot of guys coming back. Bud Clark is in, I think, year 19. Just kidding, it's year 6. But he's been back into that defense for a while at safety. They got some young linebackers they're excited about, a pass rusher in Devin Deal that put up some really good numbers last year and is going into his second season after transferring over from Tulane. So a lot to like about this team. If they can clean up some of the details, I mean, coulda, shoulda, woulda, but I really feel, a couple of plays away from being 10-2 last year. Blew a lead to UCF, just completely blew a tire against Houston. So I think this team can do it. For Arizona State, I mean, obviously won the league last year, really took everything by storm. Kenny Dillingham, really energetic coach. How do they replace, though? I know they got a great running back in the transfer portal from Army. It's not only the production, but the leadership of Cam Skattebo and that kind of fiery nature that he brought to the team. And how do they get back to Arlington, Richie?
Yeah, and I mean, the whole Cam Skattebo thing is where everybody is focused in the nation, and rightfully so, because Cam Skattebo finishes 5th place in Heisman voting last year. He goes into the Texas game for the Peach Bowl, says, I'm the best running back in the country. So now the microscope is placed on you, only for him to win the Peach Bowl MVP on the losing team. Never seen that before. Now you have to replace him, which is going to be pretty much impossible. Locked On Sun Devils fans, get ready to roll your eyes, because I say this all the time. But for the Locked On Horned Frogs fans, hopefully you guys are fans of the movie Moneyball, because we can't replace Cam Skattebo, but we can replace him in the aggregate. We just need guys who get on pace. So you bring in Kanye Udo from Army. Downhill runner, nose for the end zone. Okay. Cam Skattebo had that ability. Kyson Brown, going into his 3rd year with ASU, he actually got to advertise himself as a potential starter against UCF last year when Skattebo was out, and looked pretty darn good. He's a little bit of Mr. Do-It-All. He can make a guy miss. He can put his shoulder down. He can catch the ball. Perfect. Sounds like what Cam Skattebo does. Raleek Brown, who has been severely injured the last 2 years, 1 year at USC, last year at ASU, with a nagging hamstring, is finally healthy. He was getting first-team reps in spring ball, looks phenomenal. He is an ace receiver. He was so good that USC was like, yeah, we're going to put you in the slot, and you're going to play receiver. So Cam Skattebo, pretty good receiver last year. There you go. So you can't replace Cam Skattebo, the player, and that's huge for ASU. But what you can try and do is replace his production, because he has 1,700 rushing yards. He has over 2,200 scrimmage yards, 20-plus touchdowns. You can try and culminate the three of those guys together. Kyson Brown, Raleek Brown, Kanye Yuta. If you can have those three replicate 1,700 yards and I'll take 15 touchdowns, honestly, let alone 20. But you just have to find a way for your running backs to get all of that put together. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Sam Levitt to Jordan Tyson. Sam Levitt ends up being second team all-conference last year. He was the Big 12 freshman of the year as a redshirt freshman. He was terrific down the stretch. Jordan Tyson, from week 8 to the end of the regular season, led the nation, not the Big 12, the nation in receiving yards. Those two are back. Let's see if they can run it together. But, I mean, that's kind of what you're facing right now with how do you replace Cam Skattebo? You're really just hoping you replace his production.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the production, it's the intangibles, but I definitely get what you're saying. Like the idea of, okay, this guy, like we can't replace him with one person, but if we have different pieces, to put the puzzle together, then we can do something similar. And then with that, if other people step up around, where he was, then maybe it kind of comes out as a wash in the end. So I guess the next step is I actually, in our Locked On preseason poll, I had Sun Devils, Horned Frogs 1-2. I'll just tell you up front. So perfect segue for this episode. But if it's not these two teams, I mean, I've kind of been on this tour right now doing a couple crossovers. It's going to catch up with me eventually. I'm sorry. I'm not really believing in Texas Tech. I know they added a ton of talent.
I don't blame you.
I don't necessarily believe in Joey McGuire. I think Baron Morton's a kind of pedestrian quarterback. And I also just wonder about how quickly can all that come together. But, I mean, I like Kansas State a lot. I think Avery Johnson in year 2 and a lot of complementary pieces along with Chris Klieman being a coach. Iowa State being a returning Big 12 championship appearance, playing Arizona State. Who are some of the teams aside from the two that we're talking about that kind of catch your eye as potential favorites to win the whole conference, Richie?
So I do like Texas Tech, but one of the things that I feel like a lot of people overlook, certainly Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football, who you can make your third listen of the day after Locked On Sun Devils / Locked On Horned Frogs, whichever you would like to go first. He loves Texas Tech, has Texas Tech as number 1, and he's basing it off the roster, to which I say paper champs. Now, don't get me wrong, I do really like Texas Tech. I like what's coming back, and I love those trenches. That defensive line is going to bully people. The offensive line got a lot better. They've got some pass catchers back for him, like Coy Eakin is returning. Terrence Ferguson, the tight end, is back. Like, they got the stuff there, but I'm definitely with you in terms of how quickly can everything come together, because we've seen before that teams can assemble really good teams, really good performances for a season with the transfer portal. Take a look at Colorado. They won 9 games last year, and the vast majority of that team was built through the transfer portal.
Right.
But there's a lot of teams that just don't have that connection right out the gate, and that's such a huge thing, is the chemistry. You're going to have a hard time getting the chemistry, and guess what? A lot of the guys they brought in are seniors. Like, they're only going to be here 1 year. So I'm with you on Texas Tech and being a little bit cautious. That said, I do think that they're one of the bigger favorites in the team because I do like Baron Morton. I just like the consistency that he has in terms of how long he's been with the team. I don't know if I place him inside the top 5 in the Big 12, but I mean, me and you also know the Big 12 is stacked.
Loaded, yeah.
At quarterback. Yeah. So I go back and forth between Texas Tech, I'm with you on Kansas State. And back in like February, I said Baylor. And I got a lot of raised eyebrows for that. And I'm feeling pretty good about that. But Utah's coming up for me. And like I said, I'm bullish on TCU. I think maybe this is an insult. I feel like they're one of the bigger sleepers in the conference. And I don't know if being called a sleeper when you're Texas Christian University is fair, but I just look at TCU and I'm like, that's a good program, man. Like, I think they're primed for a big bounce back this year.
Yeah, I mean, they did it to themselves with the year and a half after that playoff appearance, but I certainly feel like nationally and even within the Big 12, they're not on everybody's top of the list. And part of it is like, I mean, we know this, Richie, as Big 12 fans, as people that watch the league, like there's legitimately 8 to 10 teams that I feel like can make an argument. And if they sit there and talk long enough, you're like, okay, yeah, I guess I see a path for you to win this league. I agree. I think Baylor's good. I mean, like it kind of hurts me to say that. And so I don't totally agree with you just as you know, on a spiritual
level. Same if you mentioned the team down south.
But right. if logically, if my logical brain is turned on, then yeah, so Robertson, good QB. They got a great running game. And you know, they kind of closed the year like TCU. Honestly, I feel like the reason Baylor's getting more hype is because they did win that game in Waco against the Horned Frogs. It was, you know, on a last second field goal, but both those teams went on a run. Baylor won the head-to-head matchup. So I feel like in most people's minds, they're like, oh, okay, that's sort of the separator here. But a lot of good matchups, Richie. And I think when we come back, let's just lay it down. What's the toughest game on these two schedules? Locked on Sun Devils, Locked on Horned Frogs, Locked on College Crossover Edition.
Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it on with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings back the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this is the hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on the course or maybe off the course, you need a little extra boost to stay sharp and energized. What's the weirdest course you've played? What challenges did you face? And do you think it could have been a little bit easier if you had that 5 Hour Energy shot? I bet you it could have been. And I bet you it'll help you make some amazing memories as well. Golf is all about the good times with good people, good flavors, and of course, good vibes. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the Beth card. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to get through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. My friend, I think that was the perfect segue because that is what we got coming up next. We got to talk about those schedules. Now, ASU, TCU gets to play each other. We're going to say that towards the end of the show, though, because ASU has a gauntlet this year to be able to prove that they are worthy of repeating as champs. The only team they don't play from last year and the big contenders is BYU. Well, that's not true. They don't play K-State either. But, I mean, BYU, we don't know what's going on with them. To be decided, K-State, ASU's lucky to dodge them. They got just about everyone else, but I don't know a lot about TCU's schedule. I know they play ASU. I know they play Baylor. What else is on there that is heavyweight games? What might be the biggest game for TCU right now?
Yeah, they don't really dodge anybody either. I think when we talk about toughest games, I actually did a series earlier this offseason where I discussed like the 5 games that I feel like we're going to define the season. At the time, I had on the road at BYU at number 1. That was before Jake Retzlaff left the team. So I feel like that's changed in the last few months. But they go to Manhattan to play Kansas State, which, man, if there's a team that has just had their number as of late, they didn't play K-State last year, but They took them down in the Big 12 championship game a few years ago, and then the next season they played them in Manhattan, and it was just a total embarrassment. I mean, it wasn't competitive, it wasn't close. The Baylor game is going to be tough. I feel like the combination of it being at home, and even though they lost last year, like TCU's had some good success against Baylor, even in years where they've been down and Baylor's been up. They've played them really well and upset them a few times. So maybe that's my bias showing a little bit, but I'm not as worried about that game as I am at traveling to K-State, traveling to Arizona State. They get Iowa State and Colorado as well. Those games are at home, so those will also be tough ones. But yeah, they don't really miss any of the big power brokers in the league or the teams that we think are going to be at the top of the conference before the season. You know, when you look at Arizona State's schedule, I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, but what are some of the huge games you're circling for the Sun Devils?
Oh man, dude, you got big road games this year. Is where ASU is going to have to prove themselves because you have to go to Baylor, and that is your opening game in Big 12 conference play. So 2 years in the conference, first 2 years, you are starting on the road to open Big 12 conference play. There we go. You have to go to Iowa State in November, which is already unideal for a team that's looking for revenge in what was a beatdown of a Big 12 championship game. But now you're going to a cold weather environment. You have to go to Boulder to play Colorado. We don't know what they're going to look like this year. They're obviously replacing a lot, but that's still a talented football team with some big time players and some big time quarterback potential with Caden Salters and Juju Lewis. So will be interesting to see what they got there. You do have Texas Tech coming to Tempe. That'll be a huge opportunity for you because, like we mentioned, they are the paper champs for sure. But is everything going to work out, or is this going to be kind of a conglomeration of an 8-win team? I don't know, but I do know that Texas Tech has had plenty of hype in the past, and they haven't been able to get to that point yet. I don't know about you. I think Houston is a sneaky team this year to upset some bigger programs. I don't see them better than like 6-6, and I think that'd be an insane season for them. But I do look at them the same way that they were last year and got some big upsets, right? So I'm not going to overlook the Cougars. We'll wait and see what happens, but ASU definitely has a gauntlet this year. If they want to prove that they're the big dogs in the Big 12 and deserve the national respect for the college football playoff, which they didn't have last year, you definitely generated it at the end of Texas. But the big question that everyone has right now, Stephen, and I am curious what you think, is that ASU might have been a Cinderella team last year, and they gotta beat those allegations. So big year.
They do. And I mean, I was thinking about this in preparation for the show. You know, since the Big 12 has shifted and it started with OU and Texas leaving, they add some teams. And then, of course, they add the Pac-12 teams. I feel like one big question everyone's had is like, who can be consistent, right? Like you have teams that have shown for a year or like, you know, a few weeks, like they're going to be the team that emerges. And then suddenly they can't follow it up. I like Kenny Dillingham a lot. I feel like he's here for the long haul. He's got a good plan. Like he's trying to build this thing the right way. It is tough to have a target on your back, but I don't know. I think Arizona State is good in all the right places. Like they got guys in the trenches coming back. You have a returning QB. We talked about the running back spot earlier. You got good weapons on the outside. So, like when TCU was coming off their run, there was a lot of roster turnover. Like you were replacing your quarterback, you're replacing a lot of linemen.
Number one receiver, number one
receiving
corner.
room was shifting. Like that was a team that felt like they were at the top of their development cycle, and then things immediately kind of came back down. I guess in my mind, I don't think Arizona State's quite there, but for you, like what gives you optimism that they can, even if it's not like being in Arlington, at least, you know, maintain that consistency to win a lot of games and be in the conversation towards the end of the year?
It starts with Levitt to Tyson, which we discussed that a little bit earlier, so I won't get super into it again, but you have an elite quarterback, an elite receiver who dominated down the stretch last year. You're hoping they pick up where they left off. I think they will. They seem to have telepathy with each other because Tyson was averaging right around 10 targets a game from week 1 to the final game of the regular season. Those two are just totally in sync. But I'm really curious with the defensive side of the football because ASU played some hard-nosed defense last year. They definitely could have played better in certain areas, and they certainly need to figure out how to sack the quarterback. Pressures are great. Pressures are important. I think that pressures and sacks, you can kind of talk about them as overrated and underrated statistics. But you do need to be able to record sacks at some point, and ASU was not able to do that last year. They had 24 in 14 games. That's just not going to get it done. So they need to figure out how to start converting that into sacks this year. And you have a lot of the same guys throughout the defense. You are replacing big players. Caleb McCullough at linebacker is gone. Shamari Simmons at safety is gone. Jeff Clark on the defensive line is gone. There are some big guys you're replacing, but you also are returning your top 3 edge rushers, 3 of your top 4 defensive tackles, 4 of your top 5 linebackers, all of your top corners, essentially, and your top 2 safeties. You also have the same continuity with Brian Ward, the defensive coordinator, going into his 3rd year. The assistant coaching staff is all back. There's a lot of good things that ASU has going for them right now defensively. And the defense was shockingly good down the stretch last year. I know that our friends over in Austin, Texas, were talking about how ASU's not big enough and they can't stop us. And then they ran for less than 50 yards against Arizona State after they ran buck wild on Clemson. So they can play some great defense. And with so many guys returning, I do believe in them to have another great season. But that's going to be a huge factor for ASU, is to make sure that the defense is able to stay on top of what they need to stay on top of. As long as Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson can get it done through the air, you just need an adequate run game, and you need someone else to step up in the receiving game. But you give me a dominant, dynamic defense, and we know that's going to change a lot of prospects for you moving forward.
Before we get to the TCU ASU game, what has the recruiting bump been like? I mean, after all the exposure last year, going into this offseason, I know NIL money and revenue sharing is a huge part of this too, Richie, but are they seeing it on the trail right now? Like the types of players they're pulling in, is it different than what they were doing earlier in Kenny Dillingham's tenure?
Yeah, I think that you're seeing the players that want to be here, stay committed. And you're also seeing the types of players that ASU wants to build their team around that are also staying with the program. So, no, you haven't seen the 5 stars yet. You haven't seen a ton of 4 stars commit, at least consensus 4 stars, because you and I both know you can go to Rivals and ESPN and 24/7, and everyone's got a different rating. So they haven't seen that level of success in terms of the notoriety to where you're seeing the big websites posting ASU just lands elite wide receiver X and so kind of thing. But they're getting the guys that they want to be a part of their program. And one of the things with Kenny Dillingham, right, wrong, or indifferent, if you verbally commit to Arizona State, you do not take any more visits. And if they take a visit, then you decommit. He wants to build that classic policy of you're only as good as your word. And,
right.
If you're not ready to commit, then don't commit. There's nothing wrong with coming back later, but that's just the way that ASU is running this. And they've lost some big players. But then I look at Jake Fetty, who's a quarterback just outside of San Marcos, and he's a really high 4-star, and he's one of the top 20 recruits in Texas. He committed last September. He has not taken any other visits in almost a year's worth of time because he's all in on this program. So they're definitely seeing that uptick there. And I think that's going to lead to them hopefully being consistent contenders moving forward. But I'm with you. We got to talk about ASU versus TCU as we round out this college crossover edition of Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Horned Frogs. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to this special crossover edition of Locked On Sun Devils, Locked On Horned Frogs. Shout out to the everydayers who are here every day. ASU will be hosting TCU later this year. It will be the first time these two teams have met in Big 12 play. They did not see each other last year. It is a much bigger game than people would have thought a year ago, considering where ASU is at. And with TCU being perennial contenders, at least in my book, I think this is going to be a good game, Stephen.
I think it's going to be a fun one. You know, a Friday night in the middle of September. And I was looking today because TCU plays SMU right before this game. So
That's
teams back to back. Yeah, it's a big test. Two back-to-back teams that were in the playoff last year. But Arizona State goes on the road to play Baylor. So it's not really like either team is catching a break in that regard. I like TCU's chances here, but I will say, I mean, slowing down the Arizona State run game, that's a big question for this TCU team. I also think this defense, we're going to find out how good they are. A reworked TCU offensive line. Can they block those edge rushers that you were talking about earlier that have wreaked so much havoc over the past couple of years for Arizona State? You know, I feel like it's so early in the season. I would lean Arizona State right now, but I think TCU is going to be competitive, and I feel like there's a good chance we see these two teams match up again in Arlington. And, you know, the good thing is we're going to find out really quickly, like by the end of that ball game, we'll have a good sample size of games for both these teams where we'll know, okay, are they as good as we think? And what are your thoughts on this matchup, Richie?
I love this matchup. So for the 100th time on this show, I really like TCU this year. And it's one of the games that I am most excited about. It's ASU's home opener for Big 12 play. It is an opponent that ASU didn't get to play last year. It is a team that in the Big 12 historically, or at least, you know, in the last several years, is proven. So ASU looking to prove themselves as top contenders in the Big 12. Well, here's a great challenge for you. And I love that you're getting them at home because ASU went undefeated at home last year. Right. And you have the opportunity to host a team like TCU at home, and TCU is going to be good this year. I love Josh Hoover, man. I think that he is going to air it out all year long. In a good quarterback conference, would not be surprised if he paced the conference in passing yards. He's got stiff competition, though, because Rocco Beck's going to do it again. Sawyer Robertson is going to do it. I think Sam Levitt is going to have a good year. But Josh Hoover can just flip the ball all over the place. ASU last year was up and down against the pass, too. There were some games where they locked it down, and there were some games where they were getting absolutely torched. And if there's a quarterback on this roster, on this schedule that could take the most advantage, I mean, Josh Hoover is one of those guys for me. So I love this game. I love that it's early in the season. And I love that being at home, it's going to be a really nice test for one, to see how that home field environment has grown, because you went from the beginning of the season, people stayed for the first half of the game and then they would leave, to the end of the season, you had pseudo sellouts, and then you had an actual sellout against BYU, and suddenly that home field advantage became a home field advantage. So here's a great opportunity to prove that you can do it twice.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be a great atmosphere, and I think a really good measuring stick for these teams early in the season. Richie, for Horned Frog fans, where can they find you and Locked On Sun Devils?
You can find Locked On Sun Devils wherever you're getting your podcasts, if that's Spotify, Apple Music, or YouTube. If you want to check me out, you want to talk some ball, you can find me on Twitter at Richie Brads36. The podcast is there at LO_Sun Devils. I'm excited for this matchup. Stephen, for the Sun Devil fans who may want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm at Simcox Stephen, and best way is probably to subscribe on YouTube. But as you said, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We'll have another crossover between these two teams on game week. It's Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Horned Frogs, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.